Welcome to the Labour Force. I'm Bongeni Mutwa. Organised Labour says it's strongly opposed to another hard lockdown to cap the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. This as talk of a third wave of COVID-19 is gaining momentum following the rapid increase in new positive cases recently. The South African economy has been coming back strongly from the devastation caused by the total shutdown during the first wave of COVID-19 last year. The total shutdown led to the loss of a record 2.2 million jobs in the second quarter alone. A memory which is still fresh in the minds of trade unions as talk of a third wave of COVID intensifies.
As COSATU, we are very worried about the COVID-19 third wave. Of course, we have been monitoring the figures. We are realizing that the figures are starting to really increase at an alarming rate. We think that though, what needs to happen is that the Department of Health and the government in general needs to focus on really reinforcing the current health and safety measures. What we cannot afford is another economic lockdown. So our position is we need to ensure that people continue to wear masks. Of course, we are starting to see more fatigue. I mean, people are no longer complying with the protocols and the restrictions that have been put in place. And we think government needs to do something to ensure that people comply. But secondly, we also think that the numbers of people allowed to gather have to be revisited. There has to be a reduction in those numbers because at this rate, we cannot afford to have so many people continuing to gather inside or outside. But also the issue of the vaccination is very disappointing. COSATU has been consistently trying to push government to ensure that we expedite the process of vaccination. Of course, it is not a magic wand, but we need to expedite the process of vaccination.
Economists agree that another hard lockdown is out of the question.
We're looking at a situation where government is going to be very careful not to institute too much of a lockdown. I think we might go to a lockdown level 2, at most a level 3, but we cannot afford another level 5 or 4 because it would really harm everything that we just built up. And companies have used most of their reserves to get through the pandemic's first wave. And if we do it again, there are no more reserves. We've used up the UIF money, for example, so there is no money from the UIF. We've already got a very big deficit. To increase that now will just mean downgrades.
Government says the country has not yet entered a third wave of COVID-19. How long that's going to be the case, only time will tell. Bongeni Mutwa, SABC News, Johannesburg. To discuss this further, we are joined by the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, Zwelinzima Vavi, who, of course, is no stranger to our show. Mr. Vavi, it's good to see you again. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutwa, and good afternoon to all of your listeners and the people who are watching the show.
Well, there's concern all around about a possible third wave being upon us or around the corner. You must also be equally concerned, I would imagine. Absolutely.
Look, we're watching that space very carefully. We are seeing the reports that indicate that the numbers are escalating to the wrong direction and that the Vaal has become a small epicenter at the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and previously Free State. And that's quite a worrying development. Of course, we have anticipated, and the scientists had long warned that we may see ourselves battling another wave, the third wave, during June and July. We are on the eve of June, and so we are not surprised to see the numbers. The call that we can only make on our people is, it is not the responsibility of government to make sure that we are safe. It is our own responsibility. It is us who must wear the masks. It is us who must keep high hygienic standards, including cleaning our hands, washing them with soap regularly. It is us who must keep the social distance, and it is us who must avoid attending large gatherings of funerals, traditional and or anything that can expose us to the spread of the virus. So we cannot say government must. We must say our people mustn't get tired to wear their mask and to keep safe. And that message is going to be exceedingly important as a call that we must make to workers every day as they get into those taxis, and of course exposing themselves in the taxi associations that have not been given a subsidy so that they can load 70%.
Do you also agree that another hard lockdown is out of the question, even if we get into a third wave?
I don't want to say never. Don't say never in the circumstances. What if we get hit by the wave as the Indian communities are being hit now? Will you say no, never, when people are dying like flies? What if that's the only option in the hands of the government, and that is now recommended by the scientists? I don't think we should take a position that says we would rather see people dying like flies. As long as the economy wheels are turning around, we will be happy. That will be inhumane statement to make. To us, it depends on the circumstances on the ground.
Now, in terms of everyone putting their shoulder to the wheel, are you as SAFTU having active programs to make sure that you spread the word to the workers, like you've been explaining, that they must take preventative measures and so on?
We did a big campaign last year, and I guess that we have slowed down even ourselves. Last year we had a massive social media campaign to tell workers that at the end it depends on us. The scientists are correct, that we can contribute directly as workers to ensure that the virus does not spread into our families and from our schools to our workplaces and to our religious gatherings, to our traditional gatherings. We must avoid that at all costs, so we must do that. But we want to urge that the government must also play its responsibility. In fact, as SAFTU, we've issued countless statements in the past to express our disgust that the government is leaving us to our own devices on a number of areas. Firstly, they are telling the public sector workers that their own well-being does not matter. They cannot get any salary increases for 4 years because the government wants to please the rating agencies.
Just talking about that, if I may chip in, we've seen that your affiliate, the South African Police Union, has abandoned the talks there when the government was signaling that it may be considering tabling an offer at last, possibly moving away from the 0% position by this weekend even. Do you think it's a responsible approach to abandon the talks at this critical time when there seems to be at least a spark of hope that we may be seeing some movement in the deadlock?
Look, the government destroyed even the integrity of collective bargaining last year already when it refused to implement the last leg of what was signed, what was a contract between itself and its employees. Government just refused to implement. What bargaining is that? Government now goes to Parliament and announces that workers will receive no salary increase. For the next 4 years, there's a wage freeze, and that 101 billion rands have been cut from the wages of the workers. And what bargaining is that? That's not bargaining. Bargaining is when you treat your partner as your equal partner, when you treat him with decency, when you disclose information first to their employees through their unions as your partner, instead of going to Parliament and tell them that the bargaining will be just about ticking the boxes. This is a sad amen to a government that came through the power of the working class, that it is now treating them like it is treating them. The second point, just quickly, Mr. Mutwa, government have abandoned the poor. Government have discontinued even the 350 rands special grants to the unemployed. Government have removed all of the protections that it put together to cater for workers and to cater for people who are pensioners and who are looking after our children. And so we are in a crisis. Government is not coming to the party when it comes to vaccination. We have condemned that the government is at its 60s and 70s, doesn't know what it is going. We are not being vaccinated. We are not being protected. The vaccination program of government it leaves much to be desired. We have not even covered every public sector worker that is much more exposed, in addition to the fact that they are not getting their salaries, they are not being vaccinated.
Well, Mr. Vavi, I'm afraid always time is our enemy on the show, but we've gotten the gist of your argument, and we appreciate you making the time to talk to us. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutu. Thank you very much.
Well, that's where we leave it. The Alternative Investor is up next with my colleague Nastasia Arense. Stay with us.